I'm loving Ed Sheeran's new album, especially that song. But yeah, I thought I'd do a little video today on university interviews. But first thing first, I'm not wearing pyjamas. It's a miracle. So anyway, back to university interviews. I've had 4 out of 5 so far. I should probably actually explain UCAS first. So UCAS is the, don't know what it stands for, but it's the kind of way of getting into higher education in the United Kingdom. Might be different in Scotland actually. Don't know. Anyway, so you put in an application. You need to fill in about 1 million pages of your name, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation. You just need to fill so much in. And then you have to write a personal statement, which is kind of the bane of every 17-year-old's life, because you have to write less than 4,000 characters, so not even words, characters, about yourself, why you're so awesome, and why you want to go to university, what you want to do, things like that. And then a teacher or someone has to write a reference for you, so they have to say why they think you'd be awesome at university. Luckily I got a nice reference from one of my teachers. Then you get 5 choices. You can choose 5 universities to do 5 courses. So I said that wrong. You can only choose 5. So I chose that I wanted to do primary education for all of my 5. Primary education at Oxford Brookes. Primary education at Manchester Metropolitan. Primary education at the University of the West of England. Primary education at Winchester. And primary education at Hull. They were my 5 choices. So I sent off my UCAS before Christmas, and then all 5 of my choices invited me for an interview. Now, depending on what you choose you want to do and what universities you send it to, you may or you may not get interviews. So my brother got 5 offers but no interviews because he wanted to do business. For primary teaching, they like you to have interviews because they want to make sure that you can speak English properly, maybe that you can write down well. So I've had 4 so far. So my first one was at UWE. So we went in. They first collected up all of your identification. So I gave them my driving licence, so they checked that it was me. And I gave them my certificates for education, so my GCSEs and A-levels, which are big exams. I gave them those certificates. And then we did an English and maths test. So the maths test was it was below GCSE standard, but I'd literally forgotten all of the maths I'd ever learned, which wasn't great. Thought there were 360 degrees in a triangle. Oops. Forgot how to do long division. But I think it went okay. The English test was the bit I was worried about, but I think it went okay as well. So it was an English test, things like what does shouldn't, what are the actual words, so it should, shouldn't, should not have, or can't, cannot, that kind of thing. Was asking about clauses, which I didn't know about, things like that. And then you had to do a written piece of work, and I think it was why you want to be a teacher. Then at UWE we also had a book presentation. So I did my presentation on a book that I like called Children Just Like Me. I explained why it was good for children, how you could use it in a classroom, that kind of thing. And then in a group of about 5 we had also a mini interview. My second interview was at Oxford Brookes. It was amazing. I love the uni so much. So it was kind of similar, although we also looked around and I found out that it's not as accessible with a wheelchair as it could be. But oh well. So we didn't have a maths test, but we had an English test where we had to write. There were lots of options. I wrote about a sporting achievement, so I wrote about cheerleading. We had a personal interview, but it was like a personal interview, but it was in pairs. So she'd ask me a question, then she'd ask the girl who I was with a question and things like that. I thought that went well. Then we had to give a presentation on kind of anything we wanted. It was called a teaching task. I did mine about cheerleading because that's something that's important to me. Like I said, we also looked around and we had a little science lesson. Now I really love that university and it was one of my favourites. but they actually rejected me. They didn't want me there, which is upsetting and a little bit rubbish, and I got quite upset about it, but I can't change it. I think I'm going to ring them next week to ask kind of why they rejected me. Not in a why did you reject me kind of way, but in a how could I have improved so you wouldn't have rejected me, so I can do that at my other interviews and get accepted. What I didn't say is I did get accepted at UE. My one after that was Hull. Again, it wasn't amazingly accessible. But in that one, we only had a book presentation. We had a book presentation, but it had to be something that Key Stage 2, which is years 3 to 6, ages 7 to 11 would enjoy. So I did Matilda because Matilda, come on, it's Matilda. It's an amazing book, and I'm going to see the musical soon, and I'm really excited. So I did Matilda. We had a personal interview again, where they kind of similar questions. Why do you want to be a teacher? What qualities make a good teacher? If you could take your class anywhere, where would you take them? Like on a trip, that kind of thing. We also had an English test and a math. Did we have? Yeah, we did have a maths test. Good interview. I got accepted again. And then my favourite university had an interview there, which was Manchester Metropolitan. They haven't got back to me yet. I think that if I get rejected, I might just reapply next year, because I don't know if I'll actually be well enough to go to uni this year anyway, because I crash after all of these interviews. I crash badly. So the one at Manchester was kind of weird. So they started off by showing us a video. The video was in French, but it had English subtitles, and it was about a teacher. It was just a video of kind of a teacher teaching a class. I found it kind of weird, and also because the video was in French, rather than actually watching it, I kept catching myself trying to translate it and thinking, no, watch it, because the subtitles didn't match up exactly with what was being said in French, because we use different phrases than they do in French. So we say, this wasn't in the video, but we say it's raining cats and dogs. In French they say it's raining swords and shields. You know, just things like that. So I kept trying to translate it word for word, then catching myself and saying, no, you're meant to be watching this and making notes. So after we'd watched the video, it was about a quarter of an hour, I think, they took us up to rooms in groups of about 6. We all introduced ourselves, and then there were 2 interviewers. One was a woman, one was a man, I don't know. I can't remember what they said they did. They were like university tutors. And we talked about the video in a self-managed discussion, and then we had to do a 2-minute talk on something. So there were lots of options for the talk. They were all about education. So there was, what educational issues in the media have caught your attention? Do you think that art should be as important as reading and writing? And one was about, should languages be part of the primary curriculum? So I chose that one. So I actually started mine with Bonjour, je m'appelle Elisabeth et je pense que les langues sont très importantes pour l'éducation des enfants. Which means, hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I think that languages are very important for primary education, or for children's education. So I then went on to say why I thought that and stuff. I think mine went quite well, and after our presentation, everyone in the group of about 6 to 8, I can't remember how many exactly, asked me a question about it, and then I had to answer one question. So the question I answered that one of the girls gave me was, would you teach just one language, or would you teach multiple languages to a class? Which I answered, and then all of the other girls did. I'm not being sexist saying girls, there were only girls in my group. Gave a talk. I think mine went quite well. There were no written tasks, no maths tests, but I think it went okay, I hope. Like I said, I really hope I get accepted there, because it's my favourite university. If I get rejected, I might just reapply next year, because I really want to go to either Manchester or Oxford Brookes. I've got one more interview left next week at Winchester, but they haven't given me anything to prepare. They did want me to bring my birth certificate, but we can't actually find that, which is not great. So, you know. But even if you get accepted everywhere, there are still some conditions you have to meet. QTS skills tests in English and maths, and 10 days in school. So hopefully I'll get accepted, and in a few years' time I'll be a primary teacher.